And now, recorded in front of absolutely nobody in their subterranean recording studio deep in the bowels of the Cigar Club of Indiana, it's time for the Five Stones Podcast.
All right, hello and welcome once again to the Five Stones Podcast. I am one of the co-hosts, Raymond Modulin, a.k.a. the Real Estate Monkey, and with me today,
I am Joe Trester, the Real Estate Advocate.
And if you notice, if you are a frequent flyer, you notice one of our guests, Mr. Colin Hedegaard with Five Stones Mortgage, is not here today. He's out on special assignment, so we're going to go ahead and go without him. And hey, Joe, I figure that the best topic today to talk about without our financing guy
is finance. Well, at least he can't muddy the water.
Yeah, so we don't get him interfering with us that know nothing about finance. So here's something I heard over the weekend was a potential home buyer was looking at a 40-year mortgage. That's right, people. You heard me correctly. A 40-year mortgage. There are some people out there that have that. And the belief obviously is that a longer term lowers your house payment. Now, you and I were just talking before this that they have now extended car financing for how long?
10 years.
Yeah.
I think most of the current Cadillac dealerships, like if you go in there and want to get a brand new Escalade, they are like $110,000 now. They will do a 10-year loan on that.
Yes. And I know the Navy Credit Union does a 10-year loan as well. And they're doing that to make the price of this $115,000 Escalade more manageable. So the common thread there is, well, then let's do a longer term on house financing. It will lower the price. And like I said, I spoke to a guy that was talking about a 40-year mortgage.
And it does lower the price. It does.
It does lower your monthly payment. But Joe and I, never to be outdone, have done our homework, and we looked at and just ran some basic numbers. $300,000 purchase at 3.5% down at 8% interest rate. Now, first of all, 8% may seem a little high, right?
But it seems it, but
it's not unbelievable. So let's just use 8% across the board for all three of these. So we looked it up, and if you took a 30-year loan, now understand we are only talking principal and interest, not taxes, not homeowners insurance,
not PMI.
Not PMI. This is just your principal and interest payment on a 30-year fixed is $2,124. All right. So that would be your monthly payment. So then we did the 40-year mortgage because obviously lowers the price, right,
Yes.
Joe?
Oh, yes.
So the 40-year mortgage at the same numbers, 3.5% down, 8% interest rate, becomes $2,012.
So there is a savings.
You want to quickly do the math on that?
Well,
$112 a month.
Yes. And I think in some scenarios, and we were talking about this, in some scenarios that can be beneficial for somebody. If you are moving into the area and are only going to be there for like a 3 to 5 year contract position, and then you're going to be moving out. Right. Or you're moving in and you know that your kids are going to graduate and you want to move to Tahiti or whatever the situation is, it saves you $100 a month and you know that you're going to be out before the end of the term. So
what happens to a person's equity?
Well, theoretically, you are still gaining equity. You're just not gaining it as rapidly as you would with a 30 or with a 15. And when you think about it, I mean, it just comes down to when you have that much that you are mortgaging at that rate for that long, when you make a payment, you're only knocking the principal down by fractional amounts.
Yeah. Especially
So,
in the first 5 years, which is what
yes.
you're saying it's good for. And just for a point of reference, I ran the same numbers on a 15-year mortgage. 300,000, 8% interest, 3.5% down. Now your payment jumps up to $2,766. So there is a substantial increase. Now, one of the mindsets that people have is, oh, I got a 15-year mortgage, my payments double. That's not true. The 15-year mortgage is only about 16 to 20% more than a 30-year mortgage, because it has to do with all the present value of money and like the time you have it.
And you are adding to your equity much more rapidly because your payment goes to more of the principal because the loan term is shorter.
Right. So depending once again on that individual person, 15-year might be a good idea. If somebody,
I will say one of the things I've always viewed a 15-year mortgage is it's almost a forced savings account.
yeah,
You are kind of taking a bet the property value is going to go up, which us being in the real estate industry, we know over time you may have a dip for a year, but it always is going up. That's why our parents bought a house for $30,000, and that same house is $230,000 today. Property value increases over time. So if you can afford that extra $600 a month, all you are doing is saving it within your house in a spot where you can't touch it, gaining equity so that when you go to sell it or you go to refinance it again, you are able to pull all that money back out, and it's saved there and it's out of the way and it's protected, because the value of your property is only going to increase. It's one of the only purchases we make where that happens.
Yeah. Other than my Corvette.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's an increase in the equity in your ego, not in your pocketbook.
My ego has shot up.
Yes.
So here's another interesting fact that will literally blow your mind, that a lot of people have been just taught to believe about a 30-year mortgage. On that $300,000 purchase, you will actually pay at 8% over the course. If you lived all 30 years and paid that 30-year mortgage off, you will pay $475,000 in interest. So that house is literally going to cost you $775,000 over the course of 30 years is what you're going to be paying for that. So once again, that same $300,000 house at 15-year mortgage, you pay it off, is only $508,000. That's a $270,000 savings by literally going from a 15 to a 30. Or I'm sorry, I misspoke. From the 30 to the 15. Yeah, you know what I meant.
Yes.
From 30 to the 15, you save $200,000 if you're going to be there all 15 years. Now, the other side of that coin, you want to hear the 40-year mortgage?
Oh, do tell. Do tell.
If you stayed there all 40 years, you would pay $675,000 in interest. So what I'm telling you is that $300,000 house on a 40-year mortgage, you will actually repay $975,000 for that $300,000 house. Almost 3 1/3 times the value that you thought you bought. Mm-hmm. So while this guy was telling me, hey, I think I'm going to get I'm looking at a 40-year mortgage, I quickly had to run some numbers by him and tell him that may not be the best idea, except like what Joe was pointing out. If you know you're going to refinance, now that's a good bet, because in the next 3 to 5 years, I would bet mortgage rates would come back down to that 6 or 5%. I don't think we're ever going to see that 3% again. Or, like you had mentioned earlier, you know that there's going to be a lifestyle change. And Joe brought up the most common one. You know, your children graduate high school, and now you're going to move to, where'd you say?
Tahiti, because it seems
Tahiti.
like the best place to
That's
go.
actually my neighbor right over there. Tahiti. Or here's what, another one. Suppose your kids you were planning to expand your family, and you had to buy a bigger house. So it could go either way. So if you're going to refi, hopefully at a lower interest rate, or you're not going to be there. You had mentioned contract position, people in the military. You know, people in the military are not more than 2 or 3 years in one place. That would be another one. My youngest stepson took a job in California. It's a 2-year contract. So he might be a good candidate. But other than that, I believe, like you and I had talked, this 40-year mortgage may not be the best idea. So just so they know, who's going to benefit?
Who always benefits? The bank.
Exactly. Because we just mentioned 30-year, you're paying $475. On a 40-year, you're paying $675,000. So it's $200,000 more for that extra 10 years that you'll be paying on that
Well,
house.
and then from a bank perspective, you have a little less risk because it's one client paying you more than you would have made off of the risk of 2 clients.
Yeah.
So you sell someone on one 40-year mortgage, you might as well sell 2 people on a 30. And you don't have to worry about 2 people defaulting. You only have to worry about 1.
Good point. So from a risk management standpoint, lenders might like this because, like you're saying, they're making the same money with the least number of exposures because of the money they're making. Or they're almost doubling their money by going to a 40-year mortgage. So it's something I think you're going to start to see. The car industry, like we've talked about, is already starting to do this. And it's not for our benefit per se.
No. You can use it towards your benefit if you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing, is having enough knowledge to understand what it is you're signing up for. Like, I will tell you that, I counsel my clients a lot of times when they're like, well, should I do a 15-year mortgage or should I do a 30? I don't know if I really want to be on the hook for another $600 or $700 a month. Well, my whole comment for that has always been, you can put your payments into hyperdrive just by making one additional payment over the course of the year. You can shave about 7 years off the length of your loan just by making one more payment a year. So there are lots of ways to, I'm going to get a bonus this year. Well, maybe you're better off not planning on paying a 15-year mortgage based on a bonus that you are potentially going to get. You get into that 30-year, and when you get the bonus, you pay a bunch off. And you could do the same thing with the 40. I mean, you're going to be able to hyper pay things down and have less interest on the backside if that buys you the opportunity to save a little.
That's a good point. We hadn't talked about that yet, but you can mitigate more of the risk, like you're saying. Take the 40-year mortgage, pay the less, and you say, well, it's only $100 less. But theoretically, like you're saying, should something happen and you get a job raise, or you get a bonus, or you get an inheritance, you can always pay more towards the principal and make that the same payment as a 30-year and eat that equity up faster, or gain that equity faster. Like, what was the term you used? I like hyperpayment.
Well, putting your payments into hyperdrive.
Yeah, but the cool thing about that would be, theoretically, this month I'm a little strapped. I get to pay the low $2012 payment, and I'm not on the hook for that 15-year payment.
Well, and I look at it from this perspective. I still have, although she is officially graduated and the ceremony is next week, yay. You can never discount something cropping up that you're not expecting, especially when you have children at home, like my daughter stepping out of a truck, falling in, breaking her leg. Even with insurance, that's going to cost us $3,500 or $4,000.
Yeah.
So having that opportunity to not pay the hyperdrive payment that month and take care of that is a good thing in that scenario.
Or your children actually coming back home to live.
Yes.
Which is becoming increasingly more popular in today's world.
And we've done a couple of podcasts about that, where people are having to combine finances to keep things going.
So I think in the long run, and while you're listening out there, first of all, let me remind you, hit the subscribe button. That helps us. It helps us show up more for you so you can learn more, and the little bell. But if you're taking notes, I would suggest the one note you take is 40-year mortgages can be good if the situation is right. And that situation can be evaluated actually by Colin, who's not here with us today. So I would encourage you to reach out to fivestonesmortgage.com and talk to them. They are the professionals. It's amazing how people go to the doctor to get advice, or they go to a golf coach to get advice. Why would you not go to a financing expert to get some advice?
I know why, because we don't teach it at school.
Exactly. Exactly.
We teach sports.
Reach out to Colin. He'll be glad to walk through this with you, and he will help you with your situation. And like we said, refinance if you know you're going to, or you're there for 3 to 7 years. It might be a good play for you. But if it's something where your kid is 5 years old going into school and you want them to graduate from that school system, you're telling me that you're going to be there 15 or 20 years, may not be the best plan for you. Even though it might cost you $100 more a month, you're going to save $200,000 over the course of that mortgage.
And you're building more equity in that property so that when the time is ready for you and the time is right to move, you have that money to be able to go where you want to go.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to go back and talk to Kent and see what he has decided. Tried to steer him. I told him, like you had said, that there may be a situation. Now, I do know his particular case. For him, it's probably not going to be a good idea. Now, I will also say, for me and for you, $112 a month may not be enough to move the needle. For some people, it might be that's your water bill. So by doing the 40-year mortgage, you actually have, in essence, removed a bill, because you can use that 100 and allocate it to something else.
Yeah.
But it depends on you, not me. And
everything is situational.
Yeah, that's why you need to seek out a professional so that they can go through your finances with you and help you understand that, yes, this is a good deal, or no, it's not.
Well, then let's pivot into that point. When you're talking with that professional, you have to be open to hearing reality and not what you want reality to be.
Yeah, that I think right now that's one of the biggest things with the market in general that we've tried to solve. There is right now I know in the real world, a huge disconnect between the sales price and what a buyer wants to have. And Joe will laugh at this because this is my running joke I use all the time. I love a Ferrari. I wanted a Ferrari. I couldn't afford one, so I bought a Corvette. You know, if I could have afforded a Ferrari, you can damn well bet that would be a Ferrari sitting in my driveway and not a Corvette. Unfortunately, some people cannot buy the house. Oh, I really want it. I love it. I've got to have. No, I love a Ferrari, just can't afford it.
And you got to be okay with who you are and where you're at.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we discussed with all of this too is, 7 years ago, even, that $300,000 house that we're talking about now was 125 or 150,000 then. So people have been in a house for a while and are starting to look, are kind of getting a little shocked with,
Not.
well, I should be able to get this for this amount of money. And that's just not where it is right now.
We know a guy that just recently bought a house, had not purchased a house since the late 80s. And he came to us and goes, damn, dude, my last house payment was only $680. We're like, Mark, you haven't bought a house in 30 years, So it's the same thing. I had a discussion with my mother before she passed away. I told her, I said, you realize my car costs 3 times the house you're living in, and it's a full brick on 1/3 of an acre. Of course, they bought it in 1974, and she's lived there 50 years, $35,000 for the house.
Well, I was having a similar conversation with my parents over the weekend. They're getting ready to make the final move to Florida and sell everything here in Indiana. And they're going to put some money into their house so that they can get top dollar. They are actually putting more money into this house, just doing basic, cleanup items and fix up items and some paint and some floors. They're putting more money in that than they did in their first house to buy it.
Yeah. Oh, so, it's not hard. Wasn't it you who was it that told us they looked at having their kitchen redone and it was like $20,000?
Well, and that's for a basic, resurfacing of stuff and countertops. If you want to do a full gut of a kitchen and put in new cabinets and all of that, $40,000 to $50,000, depending on how big your kitchen is. And I've seen them go up to 80 and 90 because people have a kitchen big enough to do an entire regiment for 4 people. So
yeah, and that, like I said, that's more than mom and dad paid for their house total. They could have walked in and paid that and said, here it is. And I remember them complaining about house payments at $35,000. Of course, it was 1974.
Well, there's this new, I don't know if you've seen the new Progressive insurance commercial. They're sitting at the kitchen table and a ghost wanders in. Oh, don't pay any attention to him. That's the ghost. How much did you spend on this fireplace? I've spent $23, including materials and labor. You got bamboozled.
Yeah. So there is the reality. My brother bought a house in early 2000s for $113,000. We sold it for $280,000. 20 years, it's doubled the value, almost tripled. So there is that problem. Hey, listen, remember, if you want to get notified, press the bell, press the subscribe button. Normally, there's 3 of us here. We've got a 4th chair that's always open. If you'd like to talk about a topic, come on here and talk about real estate or financing or business related. Just hit something, put us a comment in the comment line, and our producer, i.e. Joe, will get a hold of you and bring you on as the 4th chair. And we can actually do this remotely as well. So you don't even have to be put out by driving to our studio. All right. Exactly. Joe, any last thoughts?
No, I just want to say that we really do encourage the comments. I will tell you, we will respond to good comments. We'll laugh at smart-ass comments. But there are also some things that we are just going to ignore. Perhaps placing a diet plan in there for people is not the place to put that. If you look like if your name looks like you fell asleep on the keyboard and we don't know you, and you're from some weird foreign country that we don't recognize, probably not going to reach out to you as well. Just saying.
We also called a bunch of names on one.
All kinds of stuff.
I believe they call this pedophiles on one show, which has nothing to do with anything we talked about. So we will respond to bad comments. Just don't be rude.
Yeah. Enjoy yourself.
Although we do get a good laugh at some of those.
We do. We laugh and go, oh, that poor person.
So I want to thank you, Joe. I'll thank you, and I'll see you in a couple days. All right?
Have a good one, everybody.
Peace out.
Harumph.